The golden chandelier sparkled above the lavish dining hall of the Solara estate, casting glittering light across marble floors and velvet drapes. Guests whispered over fine wine, their laughter echoing like music reserved for the wealthy. At the head of the table sat Victor Armand, a man whose fortune in real estate made him one of the city's most powerful figures. With tailored suits and a gaze sharp as glass, he was used to people bowing, never daring to stand against him. But not everyone in the room wore diamonds. At the far corner, on her knees polishing the marble near the buffet, worked Elena Marquez, a quiet maid in a faded uniform. Her hands were cracked from endless scrubbing, her back bent from carrying burdens no one else could see. To her, this job wasn't about survival alone. It was about sending money back to her sick mother and her younger brother who couldn't walk. Victor noticed her when she accidentally knocked over a silver spoon. The sound, tiny, insignificant, clinked against the floor. But in a room where perfection was demanded, it was enough for Victor to sneer. He stood, raising his voice so everyone could hear. Pathetic. Can't even pick up a spoon without making noise. Shut up and work. Gasps fluttered across the table. Some guests laughed uncomfortably. Others sipped their wine pretending nothing had happened. Elena froze, cheeks burning with humiliation, her fingers trembling as she picked up the spoon. But what no one expected, least of all Victor, was what happened next. Because within minutes, the same man who barked, "Shut up and work," would find himself on his knees before the very maid he mocked. The guests returned to their chatter, but the sting of Victor's words hung in the air like smoke. Elena bent lower, swallowing her tears, telling herself she had no right to fight back. After all, he was rich, powerful, untouchable. But fate has a strange way of humbling even the untouchable. As Victor raised his glass to boast about his latest business conquest, he suddenly staggered. The color drained from his face. He clutched his chest, gasping for breath, his wine glass shattering on the floor. "Victor?" one guest shouted, rising in panic. "Somebody call an ambulance." Chairs scraped, heels clattered, but everyone froze in fear. No one dared move close, afraid, helpless, uncertain. Everyone except Elena. Without hesitation, she dropped her cleaning rag and rushed to Victor's side. Her training as a caregiver for her bedridden brother came flooding back. She knelt beside him, her hands steady where the wealthy trembled. "Sir, stay calm," she whispered firmly, tilting his head back. She loosened his collar, checked his breathing, and without fear began CPR when his chest stopped rising. Her palms pressed rhythmically, her voice urging him back to life. The room was silent except for her steady voice. "Breathe. Come back. You're not done yet." Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, with a ragged gasp, Victor's eyes fluttered open. He coughed violently, clutching Elena's sleeve as though clinging to the edge of life itself. And there he was, the powerful millionaire on his knees, trembling in the arms of the very maid he had humiliated moments before. The guests stared, stunned into silence. The irony was sharper than any blade. The man who said, "Shut up and work," was alive only because the maid refused to stay silent. Victor's voice cracked as he whispered, You saved me." Elena met his gaze, not with pride, not with vengeance, but with simple humanity. "I only did what anyone should." But in Victor's heart, something cracked open. For the first time in decades, he felt small, and strangely grateful. The ambulance arrived minutes later, but Victor refused to let go of Elena's hand. As paramedics checked his vitals, he held on to her as if she was his anchor in a storm. The party was over. Guests whispered in awe, not about his wealth, but about the maid who saved his life. Days later, Victor sat in his hospital bed replaying that night. The words he spat, "Shut up and work," echoed with shame. But louder still was the memory of Elena's steady hands, her calm courage, and the compassion she offered despite his cruelty. When he was discharged, Victor returned to the Solara estate with a very different mission. He summoned Elena. Nervous, she entered the grand hall, expecting to be fired or scolded again. Instead, she found Victor standing, not behind his desk, not towering above her, but on his knees, head bowed. "Elena," his voice trembled, "I was cruel. I treated you as less than human. And yet you gave me back my life. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I beg for it anyway." Tears filled her eyes. She had never seen a man like him bend, let alone kneel. But Victor wasn't done. He stood, his voice steadier now. "From this day forward, you are no longer a maid. I want you to lead a foundation, funded entirely by me, to support families like yours, to give dignity to those who work hard but are overlooked. Let your kindness shape the legacy I should have built long ago." Elena gasped. It was beyond anything she could imagine. Her hands, once cracked from scrubbing floors, now had the power to change lives. Months passed, and the Marquez Foundation for Dignity in Work was born. Elena oversaw scholarships, healthcare aid, and training for domestic workers across the city. And standing beside her at every ceremony was Victor, not as the untouchable millionaire, but as a man transformed by humility. He never again raised his voice to belittle. Instead, he used it to uplift. And whenever he spoke of kindness, he always said the same words. "I was on my knees when I realized true wealth isn't in what you own, but in the lives you honor."